I think it's fair to say the Biden administration is barely 100 days old, but has already taken a huge number of bold and very welcome steps on issues like climate change, global health and human rights. And that's really created momentum in efforts to tackle these pressing global issues. Since Tony's confirmation, we've been working very closely together, and today's meeting has been another reminder of the depth and breadth of the work that we do together, the convergence of our interests and the many shared values. So today, Tony and I discussed a full range of issues. I'll give you a highlight of, I think, some of the key points. We talked about our shared commitment to stand up for open societies, democracy and human rights, protecting fundamental freedoms, tackling disinformation, holding human rights abusers to account. We talked, a key element of this is defending the rule of law, so we're determined to reform but reinforce the multilateral system. We want to keep working together very closely on all of these points through the G7 and President Biden's Democracy Summit. We also discussed China. I think it's fair to say we see eye to eye on the need to stand up for our values, holding Beijing to the commitments that they've made, whether it's in relation to Hong Kong under the joint declaration or wider commitments, whilst also at the same time finding constructive ways to work with China in a sensible and positive manner where that's possible. That's important, I think, on global issues like climate change. We want to see China stepping up to the plate and playing its full role. And Tony and I also discussed a whole range of security issues, Iran, Afghanistan, continuing concerns about Russia in particular on the border with Ukraine. We stand shoulder to shoulder on these issues, and I welcome the US's firm recommitment to the NATO alliance. It's only by working together overseas that we can keep our citizens safe at home, and I think that's true in NATO, and I think it's true on COVID and the various measures that we're taking to extend and expand and promote COVAX. Secretary Blinken and I will see the Prime Minister tomorrow to continue the discussions that we've had. One of the major areas of common interest is building a broader and stronger set of partnerships among countries that share our values on the most important issues of the day. So the G7 Foreign and Development Ministers meeting, which begins today, is a great opportunity to really drive that agenda forward. This is the first opportunity for all G7 foreign ministers to meet together in person since 2019. So I think we're glad to be able to socialise a bit together and conduct those meetings face-to-face rather than just doing it all on Zoom and Teams. And I think it's also fair to say that the world's changed quite a bit in those 2 short years. Our societies, our economies have been shocked and shaken by coronavirus. At the same time, we're responding to a situation where our values are being challenged. The international architecture is, at least in some respects, being weakened. And there's also the rapid technological change, which brings new opportunities. We've seen that with the collaboration on things like the vaccine, but also acute challenges. And there are global threats from COVID to climate change that frankly demand global solutions, and we're committed to trying to find and forge those solutions. So in that context, we recognise the importance of building dynamic, agile new partnerships with like-minded countries that share our values. And that's why we invited the foreign ministers from India, South Korea, Australia and Brunei. Brunei also obviously representing ASEAN as the chair. And they'll be taking part later on in the week. They're all key partners for us. I think they're also a sign of the growing focus on the Indo-Pacific region as the economic and strategic crucible for this century. And as for the G7, well, at its core, it's a partnership based on values, and so it's fitting that today we meet on World Press Freedom Day. And we've seen a whole range of attacks on journalists from Belarus to Myanmar. Violations of media freedoms are growing around the world at what I feel is an alarming rate. And I welcome the unequivocal stance of the United States and the whole G7 on safeguarding those vital democratic bulwarks in our media freedoms. As co-chair of the Global Media Freedom Coalition, the UK is working with our partners so that we shine a light on the violations. We hold those to account. We support journalists who are trying to shine a light on those abuses around the world. And we try and reverse what is otherwise a dangerous trend. This cuts, I think, to the core of the values and the interests that the G7 represents right around the world. And it shows, again, I think, why it's so important for us to meet together this week.